Ladies and gentlemen, we've got something to talk about today because, of course, it is the end of the month and the start of another. And there's always something a little bit stinky that gets posted around this time frame. And that is, of course, the Gacha Revenue Monthly Report. And boy, oh boy, do I have a lot of things to say about this one. Because, of course, right, we've already clarified in some of our prior videos, in some of our prior discussions regarding this chart, that at the end of the day, it's a projection, and it's also incomplete information. Based off the fact that, you know, all these numbers that we're seeing over here, they're entirely based off of mobile revenue. And there are a lot of games that a lot of people play that are going to be bundled into this. And so what I wanted to do today was actually talk about some of the rampant misinformation regarding a lot of the numbers on here, why a lot of the data is just so stinky overall, and of course, talk about where this chart actually originates from and why, at the end of the day, right, we can't be reading too much into it. This has almost become like a monthly thing at this point, and at the end of the day, it is something that we have to take with a massive grain of salt, but it does give some information regarding some of the games that we're seeing on here. I would say the most accurate ones overall to talk about are those that are primarily only mobile games. Games like Pokemon TCG and Love and D Space. I don't think it's actually that inaccurate for games like this at the end of the day, right? Because these games are only available on mobile. And so the projections that we're seeing over here should actually be a little bit more accurate. But when we're thinking about games like Honkai Star Rail, the Genshin Impacts, the Wuthering Waves, and of course the ZZZs, which is, I mean, this just looks abysmal, right? Those games are available on a wide variety of other platforms. Think things like the PS4s, the PS5s, the Steam as well for Wuthering Waves, all, and of course like the PC. All of those other platforms are going to have a massive impact on the actual revenue getting generated as well. So let's just go ahead and focus on a couple of topics in particular, now that we've gotten that disclaimer, that explanation out of the way. The first one is, of course, going to be about Wuthering Waves and the numbers that we're seeing over here. So you might be wondering, oh boy, these numbers actually look like they're going up. That must be pretty decent, blah, 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 all of that. I need to talk a little bit about the misinformation, even from the chart's own and the website's own projected data. This is what the numbers looked like in April. You can see March 2025 over here and April 2025 over here. 21 million in mobile revenue, up to 23.375 in mobile revenue. However, this is only the April chart. And when we go to May and we look at Wuthering Waves over here, why is it showing 21,625? Huh. Interesting. You might be wondering, why did the revenue just basically get adjusted? Why did it get adjusted down? And why is it the exact same of what it was in March and April on this new chart? And the fact of the matter is that clearly, even when these projections are being calculated, it's actually just getting manipulated even further. Because as you can clearly see on this chart over here, right? Wuthering Waves was above Genshin Impacto and Zenlessly Zoni 0, based off a number of 23 million. And if it was adjusted back down to 21.625, it would be below those other games. And so you might be wondering, oh, maybe this was just a legitimate calculation. Maybe the revenue was literally just a straight line, even with absolutely no movement at all. Well, I've got something else to talk about with you, ladies and gentlemen, and that is, of course, the fact that whoever is curating the chart has a little gremlin called Gateo whispering in their ear, probably telling them to move numbers up and down. If you're not familiar with who Gateo is openly one of the biggest Wuthering Waves haters on the platform when it comes to YouTube or Twitch. He gets pretty much I believe he gets around like 200 CCV, but for some reason, because I guess, I don't know where his influence ends up coming from, he's able to just go ahead and talk to these chart owners. Maybe he's one of the owners himself, and just go ahead and start fudging with the data and the numbers on his very lonesome. So let's hear a little bit about what he's going to say about the matter.
Unfortunately, revenue PvP post ZZZ is still gonna be on top of Wuthering Waves.
Oh, yeah?
I don't see how it isn't.
Oh, yeah?
Because WuWa won't get the last few days. The anniversary revenue won't be there on day one.
Mm-hmm.
So, still gotta take the L.
So, clearly, right, on the initial release of the chart, that wasn't the case. It turns out that Gateo got basically caught. He lied. And what happened was, they went ahead and retroactively bumped the game down to make sure that it aligned with the take that Gateo had, that WuWa was going to actually be below Zenless Zone Zero. That's what happened here. Now that you have that picture, you have that framing in your head, hopefully it's becoming a lot more clear that it's absolutely insane for this kind of revenue post, which clearly has ulterior motives, that is trying to make games look worse than others and just arbitrarily rank them based off of the influence of this absolute, I mean, let's just be honest here, this racist freak. Why is this not getting removed from this subreddit? Why is this something that's allowed to have a narrative built around it, knowing the influence that somebody that absolutely hates Wuthering Waves has on it? It's absolutely absurd. And apparently, we have some digging by Sarah as well. It turns out, ladies and gentlemen, that even based off of these projections, CN numbers for Wuthering Waves are getting actively suppressed in the data. The game is actually top 10 in global, with a whopping 16 million according to these projections. And then in CN, which is the biggest market for the game, by the way, it's only showing 3.5 in May. 3.5 in CN, and it's not even moving at all. Yeah, it didn't move at all from the prior month. With Zani on banner, with the 12 reruns on the anniversary banner, apparently it just did not move at all from the Shorekeeper banner. So even based off of this, isn't it pretty clear what's actually going on here, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah, we just talked a lot about the influence that Gateo has based off of his CN connections on what's going on with this sort of chart. And we've got even more glue regarding this situation, right? We've got even more evidence when it comes to this situation and how much bullshit is actually getting spun about this game. But if we're being honest about all the numbers that we're seeing over here, it's very clear that Wuthering Waves is being actively suppressed. But even with that suppression, right, it still doesn't look too bad overall. I will say on the matter, Zenless Zone Zero, we do have Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail still pulling some decent numbers based off of these projections, with Honkai Star Rail obviously coming off of its whole like Castor-Icy global passive anniversary banner and then immediately going into Hyacinth, who is the most broken support in the game. And so, yeah, surely, right? I don't think that these numbers are anything too crazy when we factor in all of those super predatory pay-to-win elements. Genshin Impact, I mean, what, didn't they just release the Naked Apron Chef, who basically just combines Goonerbait and absolutely broken performance in Cryo and Hydro teams? So I'm pretty sure she made a pretty penny as well. But ZZZ, on the other hand, right, I do believe they just ran double males. They ran Vivian, who is... maybe she's popular, maybe she's not. And then they also had the whole double male situation with Hugo and Lighter being the only banners active for the past, let's just be honest here, like 20-something days. So, yeah, it just turned out that if these numbers are to be taken seriously, maybe that leads into the whole males don't necessarily sell sort of situation. I don't particularly know. As far as I'm concerned, the viewpoint that I have over these numbers is that I wouldn't read too much into ZZZs either, because, let's be honest here, this game sucks dick on mobile. This game is not good on mobile. And you want to know why? Because half of the tech that's almost necessary to be able to clear the endgame modes in this game, like pressing C to switch to the previous character to parry, stuff like that, you can't do it on mobile. You literally cannot swap backwards in your team lineup on mobile. And the game has gotten so sweaty and so difficult and requires such a high intensive skill cap to clear the endgame modes that I don't even know if it's possible for mobile players to be even able to play the endgame on mobile anymore. That is the impact of HP inflation. That is the impact of like the game becoming so much more sweaty. I don't think anybody factored in at all how the mobile players are even supposed to do this if people are struggling on the PC. And so at the end of the day, you could consider this drop to be a factor of male characters, or you could consider it being the fact that the game is so awful to play and experience and actually get like the whole experience on mobile. And so it probably makes more sense that a majority of this game's sales are actually on PC and the PS5 and maybe Mac as well, right? It should be on the PC and the PS5 because the game is not playable on mobile, or at least the end game is not playable on mobile. And that's likely where most of your dedicated spenders for the game are going to be coming from, right? Because, well, they want to be able to keep up with the end game, pull all the newest characters, blah, 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 do all of that. Clearly, milking your most dedicated players is something that worked out well for Honkai Star Rail. But something that we do have to factor in when it comes to HSR, ladies and gentlemen, is that unlike ZZZ, HSR is the polar opposite. HSR is a game that is super playable on mobile. And for a lot of people, the experience on mobile is almost exactly the same as it is on PC. And so you could just naturally assume, based off of that gameplay loop, that there are likely going to be more people playing and buying in-app purchases on mobile for this game than pretty much any other Hoyoverse title. Pretty much any other Hoyoverse title, because of how congruent, how similar the gameplay is on both platforms. You can go ahead, you can be a top meta player, you can have like the full gameplay experience playing HSR on the phone. But all of Hoyo's other games, and even Wuthering Waves in particular, it's not possible, right? It's really not possible. There's just a lot of stuff you really cannot do on the phones. And that's why you just naturally have to think about the impact of PC, PS5, Steam sales, all of that stuff. That's never going to be factored into this chart. And so if you are concerned about Zenless Zone Zero, if you do think that the game is going to be absolutely cooked, that it's dying after this, I would just keep in mind that distinction and the fact that this data, right, only shows mobile revenue. That is the only thing that's getting shown here. However, we do have a chat from Sarah over here, somebody that obviously, right, showed us the news of Wuthering Waves being actively suppressed in CN. Also be aware that no unit except Miyabi has sold more than the prior agent. Okay, so apparently on mobile, that means that the revenue has been going down. That means that the revenue has been going down on mobile. However, that could be a factor of the new releases aren't as popular, or the game has alienated its mobile player base by becoming too hard to fucking play unless you have a keyboard or a controller. It could be those two things. It could be their character releases have all gotten progressively worse and less popular, or the game is becoming less and less playable unless you have keyboard or a controller. I don't know which one it is. And if it's the latter, if it's about the input type, then that means that majority of the spending is going to be on the PS5 or the PC. So yeah, that's my point of view on these numbers. I do think that they're making a lot of games look worse than they necessarily are. And at the end of the day, right, all this leads to is just incessant doom posting. So let's go ahead and read what's in this comment section, because I bet it's going to be a little bit spicy. Why don't we go ahead and instead of sorting by best, we just look at controversial. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Am I excited? If even a Chad like Hugo didn't sell, you know that ZZZ does not need male characters. So, like I mentioned before, it could be the fact that they're releasing male characters like Hugo, or it could be the fact that the game is not playable on mobile. People will come up with copes as usual, but males just don't sell on ZZZ. That could be true, but you don't know it for certain. However, people are just going to say it's because of the male characters. Deleted. Comment removed by moderator. Ooh, I wonder what was in there. Probably something saying that WuWa's doing good. Guys, is ZZZ low on revenue because it's a very free-to-play friendly game? Am I right? The lower you're on the list, the better. That's what a certain community always says. Oh, okay. I don't know who they're talking about over here with that one. That just seems silly. ZZZ looks like it won't be adding another male character for a while. Again, that's, I guess, the narrative going on. So I guess if you are a ZZZ player that wanted male characters in your game, well, I guess enjoy the doom posting because of these mobile projections. When your game sucks, and I think every ZZZ player can agree with me, ZZZ sucks ass on mobile. WuWa is really PC heavy. True. Because similar to ZZZ, WuWa kinda sucks on mobile too. It doesn't have nearly as many playability issues as ZZZ, where you simply lose the ability to parry with one character on your team if you play on mobile, but WuWa lacks the ability to do like some inputs.
Money.
Do you actually like Z's genuinely?
I actually do like ZZZ, and don't worry, with some of the content that we're pushing out later, you'll be able to see why I actually have concerns and critique it. All that hype about male characters and ZZZ drops like a rock. I'm starting to think it's fake hype. Oh boy, it looks like the narrative is, not going to be very good. And do you all see why these charts as a whole probably aren't that very good for this space? Are you guys beginning to see what goes on with the discourse based off of incomplete information? Because we'll never know what the actual numbers are for things like, I don't know, PC sales and PS5 sales. I mean, you can just look at where Wuthering Waves is over here. It's ranked 53 in the top sellers. It's ranked 53 in the top sellers on Steam. I would have to assume that's pretty decent. I would assume that a decent chunk of money, right, on the biggest digital PC game web store in the world, the game is ranked number 53. I would assume that's pretty good. You can also factor in that people can sell their inventory on Steam, like their CSGO skins, their Dota 2 items, convert them into Steam Wallet cash and then spend it on the game in here. That's not impressive if you look at the games above it. Oh, like Call of Duty, like Destiny 2, like Apex Legends, like Elden Ring, like Dead by... Oh, so it's not impressive compared to these games? Oh, yeah, you're right. Claire Obscure, Elden Ring, Night... Yeah, these are all shit games, you're right. Yeah, these are all garbage. You're right. Awful fucking games. You're totally right, bro. Yep, not impressive at all. Those are gonna be the controversial comments. Now, let's just take a quick look at what's at best. Okay, yeah, this thread is not very popular. Yeah, this thread is not very popular at all. Yeah, the most upvoted posts we're seeing over here, I think the biggest one was a 500. And I guess it's just a bunch of people glazing Arknights. Yeah, guys, does Arknights have a PC client? No? Oh, so we're over here talking about the crazy numbers getting pulled by a game that can literally only have sales on mobile. And this is the mobile-only revenue chart. You can bundle in Arknights with the whole Pokemon TCG and the Love and Deep Space disclaimer that I had before. It's literally not available on other platforms. And so the revenue projection, that's all there is. There's no other way for them to get sales, unlike the other games that we've been talking about over here. So yeah, that's just another one. So clearly, the whole dialogue, the fact that it's mobile only, that sort of stuff, that people are only using these mobile numbers to explain how successful a game with multiple revenue streams is the primary dialogue that comes out of these fucking comparisons, these fucking lists. And nobody ever does the disclaimers. Nobody ever has the nuance to talk about it in the discussion. And the end result is that there's just a ton of doom posting, a shit ton of people saying how bad these games are, how they're going to EOS, how the male characters completely fucked it all up, did all of this stuff. And guys, nobody ever talks about the full picture because gacha gamers are kind of just fucking stupid. One last thing to talk about when it comes to WuWa's Suppression and CN is, I wonder why it's been the exact same for 3 months. Yeah, I wonder why Wuthering Waves' revenue in CN, according to this data, has been the same for 3 months. Interesting. Yeah, we should totally take this website super seriously. Yeah, we totally should be pasting this on the front page, getting the official moderation team to even like fucking talk about, oh, it's actually okay to talk about this data and have discussions about it, knowing that it's literally being actively manipulated by this fucking clown. Hopefully the explanation, hopefully the breakdown has eased some of the concerns that some people might be having about their games. As we all know, WuWa's getting suppressed. Fuck it, ZZZ might be as well. And at the end of the day, when you got Gateo over here as the chairman of this dog shit website with this dog shit data, who's actively going in and manipulating the data to make games look lower than what they actually are based off of his made-up projections for the numbers in the first place, you can't really take too much of this very seriously. Don't get worried. All the games are doing fine. If a game's getting close to EOSing, you'll notice. Let me know what you all think. Peace.